Hello everyone, let me ask you a simple question. Do you relate with this? If you struggle to build curved road connections that are smooth and without any jagged edges, I think I may give you a couple of tips that will help you. I'm Target, and these are my tips on how to make better looking curved roads. There are two ways of making curved roads, the Curve Road tool and the Freeform Road tool. The concept between both tools is exactly the same. First, you click to define the starting point of the road. Select the direction of the first axis, click again to define an inflection point, and select the direction of the second axis. The road will then bend so that it is tangent to both axes. The difference between the Freeform Road tool and the Curve Road tool is that on the Freeform Road tool, the first axis will extend or retract when you are defining your second axis, in a way that both axes always have the same dimensions, therefore making the inflection point a variable, allowing the creation of both big and small curves. The Curved Road tool, on the other hand, once you define the location of the first axis, it remains fixed and it doesn't move, therefore locking the inflection point into a fixed position. This is extremely useful if you want to make curves in tight or very specific angles, giving you very accurate precision and control. One example of this is making oval shapes. If you want to make a roundabout, both axes have to be exactly the same to make a perfect circle. On the other hand, when making an oval, one of the axes has to be longer than the other. This is only possible with the Curved Road tool. This doesn't mean the Freeform Road tool doesn't have its place. Its variability makes it the best tool to build organic shapes, like following the coast of a river or a slope of a mountain, or even the shape that is equidistant of another road. Also, if you are building an highway that has an organic shape, the best way to have both roads equidistant to each other is to use the Freeform Road tool. One trick that I like is to use a normal road to make the first highway, and then use the Freeform tool to make the other direction, using the zonable tiles as guides. When I'm done, I simply convert both roads into highways. So, how exactly do you make the perfect curved road connection between two segments? The answer is actually quite simple. With the Curved Road tool selected, start making the first axis of the road, which should overlap the direction of the road you are continuing. Then comes the most important part. You must draw an imaginary line that coincides with the second segment of the road you are working with, and you have to define the inflection point of the curve exactly at the intersection of both lines. Then you just have to connect them. If you do it correctly, you will end up with a perfect curved road. This tip will allow you to make perfect shapes in almost every situation. Needless to say, it also works with rails, metro and underground roads. If you see that a road ends up not connecting properly, it just means that you haven't clicked exactly at the intersection. So, try again. Precision Engineering is an amazing mod that automatically calculates the imaginary line I was talking about and displays it on your screen every time you press the Alt key, making the task much easier. If you're interested in this mod, you can find a link to it in the description. If you prefer not using mods on your game, don't worry, you can still make perfect curves, but will be much more challenging, especially for bigger curves. Let's move on to something more complicated. In this situation, we want to connect two elevated roads. However, we cannot because the game decides to create a pillar exactly on top of the rail that is underneath. If you don't want to use a no pillars mod and keep your bridges physically realistic, instead of trying to eyeballing the path the road should follow, there is a much easier and better solution. First, delete the railroad where the bridge will go, then make a curve normally just like I taught you by defining the inflection point right at the intersection point of the two axes. Next, we shift the pillar that is bothering us. To do this, we simply make new pillars on both sides of the pillar we want to remove by connecting two other roads. The game should create pillars at the intersection, and if these intersections are close enough to each other, the game will automatically remove the pillar in the middle. You can now delete the road segments and rebuild the railroad, and that's how you deal with pillars on curved roads on top of other connections. And that's it. Those are my tips on how to make better looking curved roads. Of course, some of the examples I gave you were fairly simple, and many times you'll be forced to work in much tighter angles or awkward positions where you'll have to be more creative. But if you follow these simple tips, you should be able to master the art of making curved roads and make beautiful connections in most situations. That's it from me today. I hope it has been informative and helped you understand more about the curve tools in City Skylines. I'm Target, thank you for watching and see you next time.